तुम्हारा चरण धोरे, तुम्हारा चरण धोरे।
Chaya vega domi, chaya dosha shodi, chaya guna deho dase.
Chaya vega domi, chaya dosha shodi, chaya guna deho dase. Chaya guna deho dase. Chaya satsanga deho he amare, chaya satsanga deho he amare, chaya satsanga deho he amare, posechi sangero ashe.
Ekakiya mara nahi paya bala, Hari Nam Sankirtane.
Ekakiya mara nahi paya bala, Harinam Sankirtane. Harinam Sankirtane. Tumi kripa kore Shadavindu diya, Tumi kripa kore Shadavindu diya, Tumi kripa kore Shadavindu diya, Deho Krishna nama dane. Hare Krishna, Krishna.
Hare Krishna, welcome everyone. Very nice to see all of you.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Dandatranav. I'll just do a very quick Jai Radha Madhav and then we'll get started. Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari, Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari, Gopi Janavallabha Jaya Girivaradhari, Jaya Girivaradhari, Jaya Gopi Janavallabha Jaya Girivaradhari, Jaya Girivaradhari, Jai Yashodanandana, Jai Brajajanaranjana, Jai Yashodanandana, Jai Brajajanaranjana, Jaya Yamunatiravanachari, Jaya Kunja Bihari, Jaya Yamuna Tiravanachari, Jaya Kunja Bihari, Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari, Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare. Jai Radha Madhava Radha Madhava Radhe, Jai Radha Madhava Radha Madhava Radhe, Jai Jaya Prabhupada Prabhupada, Jai Jaya Prabhupada, Jai Jaya Prabhupada, Prabhupada, Jaya Jaya Prabhupada. Shri Radha Madhav ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Gaur Bhakta Vrinda ki jai. So now we will begin with our introductory prayers that we always say. Om Jnanam Timirandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadahmayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavangsha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhanvitangsha. He Krishna Karuna Sindho Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radhakanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakalpa Tarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhaktavinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So today we are covering mantra 8 of the Isopanisad. Thank you everyone for joining so early in the morning. But we should be assured that Krishna will reward us. So last time I think we did 6 and 7, and today we are starting with 8. Here's mantra 8 of the Isopanisad. Saparyagat chukram akayam avranam asnaviram shuddham papa vidham kavir manishi paribhu swayambhu yatha tathyo yatha tatyato rathan vyadadach shashvatibhya samabhya. Such a person must factually know the greatest of all, the personality of Godhead, who is unembodied, omniscient, beyond reproach, without veins, pure and uncontaminated, the self-sufficient philosopher who has been fulfilling everyone's desire since time immemorial. Once again, such a person must factually know the greatest of all, the personality of Godhead, who is unembodied, omniscient, beyond reproach, without veins, pure and uncontaminated, the self-sufficient philosopher who has been fulfilling everyone's desire since time immemorial. Mantra 8 describes some qualities of the Lord as he is known by the Mahabhagavata, described in mantras 6 and 7. So, just to give you a little recap, the Isopanisad is describing the nature of the Lord, the characteristics of the Lord, and here we see that the Lord is being described as someone being unembodied, omniscient, without veins, pure and uncontaminated. And this is how the pure devotee of the Lord is seeing the Lord. So remember, 6, 7, and 8 were part of a section of verses on how the Mahabhagavat, the pure devotee of the Lord, how he sees the Lord. What is his vision of the Lord? What is his understanding of the Lord? And just in in text 5, we saw that the Isopanisad was saying that how the Lord walks. The Lord is a person. Throughout this Isopanisad, which is one of the principal Upanishads, it's being said that the Lord walks, the Lord is a person, the Lord has qualities, characteristics, and yet here it's said that he's unembodied, he's without veins, he's pure and uncontaminated, self-sufficient philosopher. So, remember that this Isopanisad is resolving all contradictions and describing how the Lord is resolving all contradictions. So the Isopanisad says in text 5, the Lord walks, but also does not walk. He is outside of everything, yet he's inside of everything. In the same time, the Lord is unembodied, without veins, yet he is the self-sufficient philosopher. So God is both a person and also not a person. And now in this verse and in the purport to this verse, Srila Prabhupada will explain in what sense the Lord is unembodied. What does it mean when it's said the Lord is unembodied? In what sense does the Lord not have veins? In what sense is the Lord a person but also not a person? So Mantra 8 describes some of the qualities of the Lord as he is known by the Mahabhagavat, described in Mantra 6 and 7. Which Mantra 6 and 7, just a quick recap, Mantra 6 and 7. 6 says, he who systematically sees everything in relation to the Supreme Lord, who sees all living entities as his parts and parcels, and who sees the Supreme Lord within everything, never hates anything or any being. Mantra 7. One who always sees all living entities as spiritual sparks, in quality one with the Lord, becomes a true knower of things. What then can be illusion or anxiety for him? So the theme of text 6 and 7 is that a person who's actually in knowledge, if we actually are someone in knowledge, then we will see the Lord in all living beings. We will see that the Lord is a knower of all things. And we will see that all spiritual particles all persons are within the body of the Lord. They're spiritual sparks within the body of the Lord. And the result of this, such a beautiful message here is given, that one who is in true knowledge, therefore never hates anything or any being, because he sees that person's relationship with the Supreme Lord. He sees every person as part and parcel of the Lord. And thus, he knows that everyone is dear to the Lord. Everyone is a pure spirit soul, like we were reading in this verse itself, pure spiritual particle. And so, because the Lord is pure, every living being is part of him. Ultimately, every living being is also pure. So they have just some temporary material contamination on top of them, which will be removed over time. And therefore, the pure devotee of the Lord does not hate anyone, but sees everyone's connection as the dearest child servant of the Supreme Lord. So now in mantra 8, Prabhupada here in this purport now talks about the transcendental body of the Lord. The transcendental Lord is fulfilling all our desires accordingly. So Krishna is the one also who fulfills everyone's desires. He is the like the Gita says, the witness and the permitter. He's not the one desiring, and he also doesn't want us to do all the things that we do, but he allows us to do it up to a certain extent based upon our past karma. And in this way, lets us exercise our freedom, but also makes us accept the consequences of exercising our freedom. Mantra 8 further explains the transcendental qualities of the Supreme Person as he reciprocates with all living entities according to our desires and activities. The Lord is not limited by any material qualities. Thus, he may expand his form into innumerable forms to perfectly reciprocate with all living beings according to our desires to please him, or even hide his form from those who wish to forget him. In this material world, he is fulfilling our desires according to our qualifications and activities, or according to the law of karma, even though such material desires may cause us pain. But on the spiritual platform, we simply desire to please the Lord, and he helps us. Very, very important points mentioned here. I just want to focus on a few of them. So, Krishna, meaning that he is unembodied. It means that he has no material body. It said the Lord is not limited by any material qualities. So unembodied doesn't mean he has no form, he has no body. But unembodied means that he has no material body. He has a spiritual body by which he can reciprocate with all living entities according to our desires and activities. So because he has a spiritual body, therefore, he can reciprocate. Okay, I think
Hare Krishna. Devotees, my husband's laptop is restarting, so he'll be joining in a few minutes. He's just working on it.
Okay, Mataji. Thank you.
Hare Krishna. Sorry. Just going to share the slides now. Okay, so at what part did I freeze? I don't remember when I froze.
You were explaining the embodied portion of that verse.
Okay. Okay, wonderful. So so I got that far. So now so because he has a spiritual body, he can reciprocate with all living entities. And then a very important sentence here, that he reciprocates with all of our desires. And one of those desires that some living beings have is to forget the Lord. And therefore, he even hides his form from those who wish to forget him. So the Lord is so kind that although he's providing everything, he's giving us everything, but if we want to forget the fact that he's the controller and the person behind this universe, who provided us this entire universe, he will even hide himself from the universe so that we cannot see him, so that we can forget about him. Because that's the desire of the living entity who's come in this world, that I want to forget about the Lord. And so then the Lord hides himself. But the moment we want to remember him, the moment that we have the desire to find the Lord, to see the Lord becomes gradually manifest in front of the devotee. The devotee can feel his presence. The devotee knows that the Lord is there. And the further we advance, the more we have the factual realization of the Lord's existence. But the point being that if we want to see the Lord, then the Lord fulfills that desire. If we want to hide from the Lord or want the Lord to hide from us, he also does not reveal himself. So he fulfills our desires, but of course we all have desires, and some of our desires are in conflict with each other. Like Prabhupada says that the man who's going to bed in his house at night, this is a big Chicago issue here, he's praying to the Lord, my dear Lord, please keep my home safe. Please don't let a thief come inside my home. And the thief who is starting his night, he's about to go and steal some homes. He's praying to the Lord, my dear Lord, please allow me to steal some homes today. Please allow me to, get a good booty today and break into different people's homes and get that. So both are desiring and both are praying to the Lord to fulfill the desires. So now the Lord has to develop a system, has to fulfill those desires according to some system. And that is the law of karma. That is our qualifications and our activities based on which the Lord allows us to fulfill certain desires. Even though he knows that these desires will cause us pain, but he knows that from that reaction we will learn. So sometimes he doesn't let the thief steal. On the other times, he lets the thief steal. Because perhaps the person who is losing the things needs to learn something, or has some past karma, or was a thief in his previous life. And therefore the Lord is allowing that thief to steal. But then the thief who is stealing will have to incur the pain and the suffering, the reaction for stealing. Which in previous ages, now it's like, it's our system of punishment is a joke. In previous ages, if someone stole and it was proven without doubt that they stole, then the king would cut off their hands. That's how serious of an offense it was. And what was the result? The result was that hardly no one stole. People did not steal because the punishment was so heavy, they're afraid. Even to this day, for example, in certain countries like Singapore, there's no crime. If you go to Singapore, people sleep with their doors open, unlocked, no one locks their cars. There's like literally zero crime in that country. And the reason is, why? Because the system of punishment is very strong. About 10, 15 years ago, there was a case where an American student went to Singapore. And when he was in Singapore, he was a student there, and one time he vandalized a car by throwing tomatoes at it and throwing some eggs at it, but didn't break it or anything. He just, threw some things at that car. He was caught for what he did. And, he thought, okay, he got caught, threw some tomatoes. I might have to, pay $100. That's what you would have to do in America. Well, the Singapore government told him that as a result of this, he would get 6 lashings and would have to spend about 1 year in jail. That's how is 6 lashings. And the way that professional lashers lash, they use the whip, there will be a permanent mark for the rest of your life. So you have 6 permanent marks when they lash, pieces of the body, the skin come out. It's not just any old lashing. This is the heavy duty lashing. So this American student, he went all the way to the American government. He could not leave the country, but he appealed to the American government and said, please, I'm a US citizen. I'm in Singapore. Please save me. Please don't let me go through this, inhumane punishment. And the US government spoke with the Singapore government, tried to negotiate something, nothing. Then finally, he went to the president of the United States. And at that time, the president was Mr. Bill Gates. And not Bill Gates, Bill Clinton. Bill Clinton was the president. And Bill Clinton personally asked the Prime Minister of Singapore, the president of Singapore, please excuse this American student. But the minister came back and said, if we excuse him, then every student who comes from America to Singapore to study will think that they will get excused by the US government, and therefore we will not do it. He will have to undergo the 6 lashings. So this US student, he had to undergo the 6 lashings and then was sent back home. Such a serious punishment. But the result was there's no crime. There's no crime in Singapore. There's no, it's like, you don't have to worry about mass shootings and this and that. The citizens are free. They're. So in the same way, we sometimes may feel that the Lord is so harsh. The Lord is so strong. Why does he let the soul suffer like this? But the Lord allows the living entity freedom, but if we misuse that freedom, the Lord allows the living entities to suffer so that we don't desire the wrong thing, so that we get rectified. And finally, we come to the spiritual platform where we only desire what is good for us, not for Krishna. Krishna doesn't need our service, but what is good for us, which is to serve and please the Lord. That is what is good for us. That is what is good for everyone. And that is what we want to do. And Krishna then helps us in that regard. So Radha Govinda Maharaj, he says this actually in one class. He said, we should be afraid of our karma. Karma is very serious because Krishna is a loving father. This is his love. He is punishing us if we do not act in a way that is conducive to the service of the Lord. So what are the Lord's characteristics? The Lord has a spiritual body. He is omniscient. That's being described in this verse. No material body, but a spiritual body. Omniscient, all-knowing. Cannot be subject to criticism. Why? Because God means good. God is the definition of good. Whatever God does, that is good. Where do we get our definition from good? Who creates the conceptions of good and bad? It is Krishna himself. So he is goodness himself. He has no veins. He is pure and uncontaminated. So no veins, what does that mean? Very interesting here. No veins means that our material body, you can divide it into parts. It's not a simple entity, meaning that it is a complex entity. It's a network of many things coming together, making one body. And therefore, that body is not us, because you can take parts of it away and you're still there. The body is not an irreducible eternal truth. Rather, it's a temporary combination of material things. A spiritual body is different from a material body. Why? Because you cannot divide it into further parts. The spiritual body is a simple entity, meaning it is a single thing that cannot be divided in further parts. Just like in metaphysics, they speak of this, that just like if I ask someone, what is a table? Then they'll say, well, a table is a piece of wood. A table is a combination of molecules and atoms. But if I ask you, what is an electron? What is a proton? What is a neutron? The fundamental smallest particles of this world. Then what will you say? Well, an electron is a particle with negative charge. Electron is something that has very little mass. But then I tell you, well, you described it, but what is it? You described it, but what is it? You say, well, electron is just an electron. You cannot define it in further terms. You can define an atom as a proton, neutron, and electron. That's what it is. So you use an electron to describe other things, but an electron itself is the most fundamental particle. You cannot divide it further. You cannot say, well, what is it? Well, it's this and this. It's a negatively charged atom, but there's nothing like a negative particle and then something negative and something particle and then something. You cannot actually break it apart into further parts. You can only describe it. In the same way, the spiritual body of the Lord and the spiritual body of us, the living entities, the spiritual bodies that we have, the reason why they are actually us is because you cannot divide it further. The Lord is indivisible. right? This is one of the qualities that Krishna gives of the soul in the Gita. Remember, what's that quality? Who can say what's the quality of the soul that Krishna says? Yes.
It's the smallest entity.
It's the smallest entity. Very good.
It's always blissful and knowledgeful.
Satchitananda.
It's always blissful, full of knowledge. It's eternal.
Mhm.
What else?
It cannot cut into pieces or cannot burn.
Yes, it
Cannot,
cannot be cut into pieces. It cannot be cut into pieces. So you can't break it further. You can't even cut it further. What else? Someone else.
Cannot be burnt.
Yes. You cannot burn it. So, something like a piece of paper, you can burn it and then make it into thousands of little pieces. You burn the paper, it goes like this. And then 1,000 of black pieces of paper are there. Very nice.
It
What
cannot
else?
be drowned.
Cannot be drowned. It cannot be wet. Why? Because it's a simple entity. Water can be on top of it or below it or on the side of it, but you cannot wet it. What else? Anything else? Yes. So it cannot be cut to pieces. It cannot be burned by fire. It cannot be withered by the wind. Yes.
It is 10th, I think 10,000 power of tip of the cannot be visible.
Mm. So it cannot be
It is
withered by
spirit.
the wind. And then as far as size goes, Prabhupada says that's an approximation that's given for us for our understanding. That it's not visible by material eyes. It's very, very minute. But the key point here is that these different qualities that are describing, these are all qualities describing how the soul cannot be cut down further. It cannot be broken into further parts. It's a simple entity, so it has no veins. It's pure and uncontaminated, we just said. Similarly, the Lord is pure and uncontaminated. The soul is itself a spiritual body. So when we say we have a spiritual body, we're referring to the soul. When we say we have a soul, we're referring to the spiritual body because the soul is itself a spiritual form. In the spiritual, it's not like we have a soul and then a body, and that body dies or changes. No, we are who we are. Right now, we are someone else. We are thinking we are someone else. And finally, the soul is a self-sufficient knower who fulfills everyone's desires. The Krishna is a self-sufficient knower. We are not. Krishna is. And he fulfills everyone's desires. In the purport, Prabhupada talks about the deity form of the Lord. We see how different the Lord's form is from the living entities. There is no difference between his body and himself. The deity is an example of such a form. Unfortunately, fools cannot approach his forms, so he withdraws himself from them. He can only be appreciated through devotion and reveals himself according to the degree of one's devotion. This verse also makes the point that the Lord has been supplying everything since time immemorial. Srila Prabhupada gives the example of how having a certain qualification is not enough. One has to be recognized by authority. He fulfills their desires in whatever way they like, even to the point of letting them go to hell if they really want. But if they want to go back to Godhead, he helps in all respects. So we covered this point. Krishna is self-sufficient and pure. Only he is self-sufficient. He is also so pure that impure things become purified through contact with him. Even if he appears to do something sinful, it is actually completely pure and purifying. Srila Prabhupada explains that this is the most important part of this verse. So, a very important point here that we need to understand, that Krishna is oftentimes criticized, accused for doing the Rasa Leela, for dancing with the gopis, for having extramarital affairs with the gopis who are married. But we must understand that Krishna is not an ordinary person. We must understand that the gopis are most blissful. Their husbands are most blissful. The whole residents of Vrindavan, everyone in Vrindavan Dham, is experiencing the highest bliss, the highest form of happiness by Krishna's wonderful pastimes, by his most loving, most purifying and uplifting pastimes. So, the idea here is that that Krishna is if Krishna performs the same activities, but the effect of the activity is exactly opposite to when we perform that activity, then Krishna's the all good. If we have an extramarital affair, we will end up ruining someone's life, either a spouse's life, our own life, or the person with whom the extramarital affair is there, and many lives, the children's lives, society. But when Krishna does anything, the whole Vrindavan is filled with ecstasy. So this is why we can follow, we cannot imitate. And the Bhagavatam mentions this very nice verse, that what is possible for the great personalities, for the lords of this universe, like Brahma, Vishnu, Krishna, Shiva, is not possible for an ordinary living being. And the example that's given is that if we want to imitate Krishna in dancing with the gopis, then we should also imitate him in lifting Govardhan Hill. And if we cannot imitate him in lifting Govardhan Hill, then we should not imitate him in dancing with the gopis. If we want to imitate, then we have to imitate in the completeness, in the fullness of the imitation. We cannot pick and choose. So if we cannot lift up Govardhan Hill, then we obviously do not have the power, the strength to dance with thousands of gopis and still be pure and self-sufficient. You see, that's the point. The point isn't just that everyone's happy. Everyone is happy because in spite of dancing with millions of gopis, Krishna remains free from lust, completely pure and self-sufficient. And in spite of dancing with millions of gopis, Krishna's only desire is to please each gopi. He has no desire for himself. Therefore, it is completely pure. He is not doing this to enjoy his own senses, but he's doing this to bring satisfaction and pleasure to the senses of his devotees. In the same way, the gopis are dancing with Krishna. Why? Because they're completely pure. And why are they completely pure? Because they are dancing only to bring pleasure to Krishna's senses, not the slightest to bring their own senses. And the proof for this is that though they're dancing hand in hand with Krishna, though they're living in the spiritual world, the most comfortable, beautiful place in the world, but when there was a service opportunity due to which they had to go to hell, the opportunity was that Narad Muni was saying that I need dust from someone's feet to put on Krishna's head, because Krishna has a headache. And the only way that the headache will be cured is if he gets the dust from the feet of his devotee. Then at that time, the gopis immediately began rolling in the dust. And they said, here, please take this dust. Because if this dust cures Krishna's headache, then this is the best offering we can give him. The Narad Muni told them that, if you give dust from your feet to the Supreme Lord, you're going to go to hell. I mean, this is very dangerous stuff that you're doing. you're going to go to hell if you do this. And the gopis said that we are willing to go to hell for millions of lifetimes if going to hell pleases the senses of Krishna. Right? How many of us are willing to do that? We are happy to serve the Lord if it brings us happiness. We're happy to serve the Lord if we can dance with Krishna. But are we willing to go to hell and suffer in hell for the happiness of Krishna? We are not. And therefore, we are not on the level of the gopis. That's the degree of their love, their pure, spontaneous love for Krishna. So here's the summary now of mantras 4 to 8, which was this section. The summary is, the Supreme Lord is the greatest person and possesses unique characteristics. Within him, all contradictions are resolved. The pure devotees see everything and everyone in relation to him and are therefore completely free from anxiety on the transcendental platform. By rendering devotional service in this consciousness, they realize him directly. Thank you very much. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Okay, so I will stop at this point. If there's any comments, questions, corrections, please share them now.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Dandavad Pranam. Thank you for the wonderful class. In one aspect, you mentioned that material body can be divided in parts, and it can be, I think you mentioned that they can self-sustain. For our body, how can we relate that?
How can we relate from that our body can be divided or cannot be divided?
Yeah, can be divided, and that they can be. If I understood right, you said that individual parts can self-sustain. Is that
No.
No, they cannot,
No.
right?
No, they cannot. What I was saying is that that the material body can be divided into parts. And because it can divide it into small parts, therefore it's not us. Because if it can be divided into 1,000 parts, then which one of it is us? Right? Therefore, it's like a covering. It's not fundamentally someone. But the spiritual body cannot be divided. The spiritual body is the soul, and that spiritual soul cannot be divided. And therefore, it is us, because you cannot divide it. It's a simple entity. The same way the Lord's body and form, it can do so many things, but you cannot divide it into parts. It has so many attributes, but you cannot divide it because the Lord is indivisible. He's a simple entity. He is who he is. You cannot say, oh, this is half of Krishna and this is the other half of Krishna. Now, Krishna is always Krishna. So yeah, the material body can be divided, and therefore it is not us.
So when we say the material body can be divided, it's like 2 legs, 2 hands, that kind of the concept. Is that the
millions of parts? Yeah, 2 legs, 2 hands, and then furthermore all the cells, and then the veins, and then the blood, like all these different parts. The material body is a combination of trillions of different things.
Sorry. Thank you, Prabhu.
Thank you. Nice question. Any other question or comment? We just finished a section, so that's why I'm only doing one verse today. Next time we'll do more. Lakshmi Mataji, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
Such a wonderful class. Prabhuji, I wanted to ask the part where you said that, the Lord starts reciprocating with us, according to our desires. How do we start knowing how he's reciprocating with us? How do we tune into that?
Well, we may have some experiences by which we understand, oh, the Lord, this is the Lord's reciprocation. And because of that, we understand, oh, the Lord is reciprocating. But we have to understand that the Lord is always reciprocating with everyone, precisely because the Lord is the super soul within the heart. And so whenever someone says that they're feeling their conscience, my conscience told me, that is the Lord reciprocating with our desires, or the Lord guiding us. Even a small child, when they're learning a language, when they get, somehow knowledge within their heart that, oh, this is how to do things, it's the Lord within the heart that is inspiring them. So, in fact, everything, we should be thinking, what is it that Krishna is not reciprocating or involved in our life? The super soul, without, Krishna says in the Gita that I am the source of remembrance, knowledge, and forgetfulness. Without his, the remembrance that he gives us, the knowledge that he gives us, and also the forgetfulness that he gives us, thank God we forget certain things. Otherwise, we'd keep suffering and suffering and suffering. Because of those things, we're actually able to function and survive. So the Lord is reciprocating always. But the point is that he's reciprocating according to our desires. Right? And that's up to us. So he's reciprocating with everyone. He's fulfilling everyone's desires. But what we desire, that is our fortune or misfortune. That is our decision. If we desire the wrong things, then Krishna makes arrangements or reciprocates in a way that may help us eventually, but also, he makes arrangements. But in the case of a materialist, Krishna doesn't do it directly. He does it indirectly through material nature. But in the case of a devotee, he's doing it directly. And that reciprocation comes in so many ways through the devotee when it comes directly. One is the amazing occurrences sometimes happen. But another way that it comes is through the spiritual master. Just a passage I was reading, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, that he was saying that how the Lord manifests externally in the form of the spiritual master. The Lord manifests externally in the form of the spiritual master. That's internally, he manifests as a super soul, externally in the form of the spiritual master. And thus he was saying that the greatest offense against the holy name is to think that the spiritual master is an ordinary human being. Because he's not the ordinary human being. He's been imbued by Krishna's potency. And so he's carrying that potency and is therefore working on a different level, on a spiritual level. So the reciprocation also comes from Krishna through the spiritual master. And that's why out of the blue, sometimes a devotee will get such an amazing mercy from the spiritual master for doing something very little, because that's actually coming from Krishna. Krishna is appreciating maybe not just that service, but a lot of services, but through the spiritual master at that moment. The reciprocation of the Lord also comes through the holy place, the Dham. When you go to Vrindavan, we get very special mercy sometimes. After years of service, we go there and we think, why am I getting so much mercy? It may be due to the Dham, it may be due to our immediate association, but it may also be due to the full year. And now Krishna's giving it all at once, the full year of effort. So how we lead our life at the present moment, is also creating the mercy that we get, the reciprocation that we get from the Lord later on or at every moment. So in these ways, we can feel his reciprocation.
Thank you, Prabhu. Dandavat Pranam.
Thank you. Nice question. Thank you. Any other thoughts, questions on anything related to Krishna's body? Many topics covered in this Krishna's form, the devotee's understanding of the Lord, his reciprocation.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Dandavat Pranam.
Hare Krishna.
Prabhu, so about that reciprocation, if you don't have that, as you said, Krishna always reciprocates, but you don't have those eyes to see because of your psychophysical nature. So, how one keeps motivated oneself, even though practicing and seeing no results, I mean, whatsoever, but how to keep on going?
Um, well, two things. The first thing is that, but we are receiving the reciprocation. We just have to look more carefully. Like, one person was feeling that, this chanting isn't making any difference in my life. And I don't feel any reciprocation when I chant. I'm, like that. So he stopped chanting. And then after a few days, he realized, oh my gosh, what was I missing in my life? Like he just wanted to chant and life was so dry, and he was stopped feeling normal. He stopped feeling the reciprocation of Krishna that he was normally feeling in his life, and he started chanting again. So sometimes we don't realize what we have until we don't have it. In the same way, the temple, the devotees, the chanting, the books, the holy name, everything has made such a change in our life. That's why we're doing it. And we can, when we stop doing it, or we are slow in doing it, then we feel the difference. We can see the difference. So that's one point. The other point is, the second point is that the more we endeavor, the more serious we are in our spiritual life, the more we feel the reciprocation. So if we're a part-time devotee, we'll feel Krishna's reciprocation very little. But if we are, regardless of what our life situation is, but if internally, in terms of our consciousness, we are a full-time devotee, then we'll feel Krishna's reciprocation a lot more. So how much reciprocation we get is up to us. This is actually true in all the religions of the world. They say, like religious studies scholars, they say that there's three orientations to religion that is present in all religions. One is the popular orientation, or the way that the masses accept a religion. They go to the temple, they pray, they go to the church, they sing songs. Then the other is yes, I'm forgetting the terms. You have the sacramental orientation, you have the popular orientation, like I mentioned, and the second one is the sacramental orientation, which is an orientation where, like a priest, you're a full-time person, you do the rituals, you do all these things, and you're really into your religion, but you do it in a very formal kind of priestly temple worship way. And then the third one is called the mystical orientation. And in this one, the practitioner is unwilling to wait until the end of life to have a direct experience of God. They're unwilling to just believe in God. They want to actually have an experience of God. And therefore, it's called the mystical orientation, where they fully absorb themselves so that they can actually experience the reciprocation and presence of God. And in the Christian tradition, for example, you see those are the Jesuits. They're lifelong monks. They're preachers. They're travelers. They do austerities. Some of these people, they go to an island and they'll chant the Jesus prayer 50,000 times. And then they claim that they have visions of Christ. Similarly, in Islam, you find the hermits who, some of the Sufis and things who are very much ingrained in wanting that. So our level of commitment will lead to a reciprocation. So if we're not feeling the reciprocation, we have to increase our level of absorption and service. There's one quote from Aindra Prabhu where he says that Krishna consciousness is a gradual process. And then he says, and we can make it as gradual as we like. Right? Krishna consciousness is a gradual process, and we can make it as gradual as we like. So yeah, it's a gradual process, and so go really slow, and it'll be really slow. But if we want to go fast, we can go fast. And his life is a very good example of this in terms of reciprocation, that he was so intense in his devotional life. There's times when he was fasting and he almost fasted to death. he would, he would chant 64 rounds a day. He was then doing 6 hours of kirtan in the temple. He was also preaching. He was also distributing Prabhupada's books. For a major section of his life, he did that. He was, giving classes in the temple. He was dressing Radha Shyama Sundar on the altar, dressing the deities. And he was seeing Krishna. He describes in his biographies written, he had so many, experiences, revelations of Krishna. And he claimed that we all can do this. We all can have this. He was reading the books of the acharyas. He was reading a lot. He would read Krishna book for like 4 hours a day. He would read Krishna book 4 hours a day because he wanted to so much become part of Krishna's Leela, realize Krishna's Leela. So he said that we all can do this. Prabhupada said we all can do this. We all can attain that stage, but it requires a commitment. And most of us cannot have that commitment. We don't have that time. But the time that we do have, we can invest it more and more in spiritual life and then get that reciprocation. Otherwise, we'll be very gradual and we'll never know whether or not it works or not. And that's true of every discipline. One can be a committed athlete, or one can be just, a very, casual athlete. And the more one is committed, the more one sees the results. In the same way, we will see the result if we become very serious in our spiritual practice. And for us, it's chanting our 16 rounds very nicely. If we chant and we eat Krishna Prasadam, and we read and we try to do the morning program, then we see, oh, Krishna's present in my life. Like he protects me. I don't make, the wrong decisions. I don't I don't, encounter ill fortune as much, or I feel happier. I feel Krishna's presence. He gives me guidance. And Prabhupada said, that's all we need to do. If we do that, then even though we're not like Aindra Prabhu, we will also feel his presence. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Prabhu. Very motivating. Thank you.
Can I add something to this, Prabhuji?
Yes, please.
Prabhuji, I live in Pune and we have a very senior most Mataji here, Her Grace Janva Mataji. And once, even we in one of the classes, we asked her Mataji, and she's being serving Radha Shyam Sundarji. She started with a few 3 or 4 deities, and now she has 18 deities in her house.
Wow.
And she's been serving them for more than 35 years, every day, without fail, single-handedly. Only sometimes she has help. So when we asked her, Mataji, how do you do it? How do you manage this? And how do you understand Krishna is reciprocating to you, to your service? So she says that each day when she wakes up in the morning, she has the same kind of enthusiasm to serve them, to dress them, to do their aarti. So that was so inspiring, and I just recollected her words when you were talking about reciprocation. So I thought I could share this with you, and it's very inspiring for all of us to continue the devotional service nicely, as you said, seriously, so that one day even we experience the kind of little kind of reciprocation from the Lord. Thank you, Prabhu.
Such a nice example. Thank you. Like, where does an older lady, get the inspiration to worship 18 set of deities? Like, we have one set, and it's like, because the more you do, the more inspiration you get. It's amazing. So amazing. Very amazing.
Yes,
Yeah.
Prabhuji.
My Guru Maharaj, he has something like 250 Shaligram Shilas. And many times devotees ask, Maharaj, where did you find all these? Where do you collect all these? And he says, no, I don't collect them. Krishna comes. Krishna comes. You don't collect Shaligram Shila. The Shaligram Shila comes. So that's reciprocation. The Lord appears more and more, more and more. And here we see 18 sets of deities. Aindra Prabhu had thousands of Shaligram Shilas. The Lord starts to appear. And it just doesn't have to be forms of deities, even in terms of guidance. devotees, when the Lord is really reciprocating with us, he'll send a devotee. He'll give us good association. And that good association that he sends is his reciprocation to us. Because a devotee is actually the incarnation of Krishna's mercy. He's a Shakti, his Daya Shakti. The Vaishnava is the Daya Shakti. So the Lord's mercy manifests in the form of a devotee. And this is a fact because there's so many devotees, but why does one person meet a devotee and another does not? Because it's the Lord's mercy that is coming to that person in the form of a devotee, because that person is searching, or Krishna wants to give his mercy to that person. So another way the Lord's reciprocation is felt is by the association of a devotee, the opportunity to get that association.
Also, Prabhuji, sometimes when we have like questions or anything when we are reading, and immediately after some time or the next day, we either stumble onto something verse or some class or some devotee talks to us. So that considers as a reciprocation also, right? Because we were
Yes.
thinking something and immediately you get an answer somehow.
Yes. Oh yes. Oh, that is the main thing. It's like too good to be true. You have a question in mind, you read the next two sentences, Prabhupada answers it exactly what you had.
Exactly, yeah.
You have some.
I mean, many other ways, but I'm noticing it a lot that whenever there's a question or anything, or even if you are thinking like this reciprocation thing, I attended Swayam Bhagwan Keshav Swami's class yesterday, and I had the same question. And see, today we are discussing this reciprocation thing, so that's why I thought of sharing.
The discussion on reciprocation was Krishna's reciprocation. Yes.
Hare Krishna.
Just recently we were Bhadra Purnima was here, so we were a group of devotees here in Naperville were trying to reach our goal, and we had pretty much lost hope 2 days before Bhadra Purnima, because we were at 250 sets and we had set the goal to 400 sets, and for the whole Naperville community. It's a big community, that's why they can do it. But still, 250 sets, I mean, that's still a lot. Each set is like $250, like that. And so we were discussing together in a small group, and we were thinking what to do. And we came up with the idea that, well, there's this one doctor couple here in Naperville who are devotees. And they're doctors, well-to-do, both of them, husband, wife, and so obviously they're wealthy. And so let's ask them to sponsor 10 sets. Let's just ask them to be we made these sponsorship levels, a platinum sponsor. And so I said, yeah, okay, this is a good idea. And then it was decided that one person from the group would approach them. And this person was thinking, well, how do I approach them? They recently just gave a donation, and will they be agreeable? How to approach them? And 10 minutes later, in her mailbox, a message comes from one of the doctors couple, one of the lady, the Mataji, comes in the inbox that for Bhadra Purnima we would like to sponsor 10 sets, and this is our sponsorship. And she immediately messaged us and said, did anyone speak with them? Because I was about to speak with them. I didn't speak with them. I said, no, I didn't speak with them. We all wondered, no one spoke with them. And just out of the blue, from within the heart, Krishna inspired her to give. Now, of course, if we would have asked, given that she was already doing this, she would have given. If we would have asked, then she would have definitely sponsored it. But Krishna sent that in initially to give us the faith that Krishna is behind us in this, that Krishna's there. And then those remaining 140 sets were very easy to distribute because everyone got so enthusiastic. You could see, well, Krishna wants this to happen. He's actually, someone is there watching us. So we should make it happen. And then different devotees started sponsoring 10 sets each, and it got done, barely, but it got done. So that's the Lord's reciprocation, like you were saying, Rativilas Mataji, that something we're thinking, and then something will happen. Someone will say something, someone will do something, and it's like, oh, that reciprocation came through the words of that person. So yeah.
Prabhu, sorry, one last thing. So if something happens like materially, right, and we say that, oh, it is Krishna's mercy that it didn't go to that extent. Okay, let me give you an example rather than just beating around the bushes. So we went to New Vrindavan, and our, I mean, we were supposed to leave at 8 o'clock and morning, and we ended up leaving at 2 or 3 o'clock. So people started saying that this must be some Krishna's plan or something, or so few people who were new, they said, what is there in this Krishna's plan? If it, we said that, okay, the bus came is very nice and all. So they said, if it is Krishna's, then we could have left at 8 a.m. with the nice bus. Why all this?
Yes.
So how do you react? And also one more incident is we had a pipe burst, and I was like, oh, this is less. So my husband is like, it's not Krishna. I mean, like this is, if it would be Krishna, then this would not have happened at first place. Why it has to be less?
Yes.
So how do you react in such situations? It makes you feel, you know, I mean, because as a devotee, as a practicing devotee, you try to see Krishna's mercy somehow, that, oh, it ended up in a lesser mess than it could have been more. But when people say that Krishna's mercy would have been when things would not have happened.
Yes. So very, very nice point here. See, Prabhupada says that the advanced devotee sees Krishna and Krishna's hand in all situations, coming through all people at all times in every place, right? So a devotee sees Krishna's hand in all situations, in every situation. So it's unreasonable to say, oh, well, if there is Krishna's hands, then we could have gotten a bus at 8 in the morning, a nice bus. But no, if that was Krishna's plan, then he would have made that plan happen. If that's what Krishna wanted, he would have made that happen, but he didn't want it to happen. Now, the other side is also there, and that is our own responsibility. So Krishna's plan, as we said, is made in response to, in relation with our desires and our choices as well, you see. So Krishna's plan is not, you could say, is not in isolation with our plan. They're not mutually exclusive. Our plan is there, your plan is there, my plan is there, your plan is there, his plan is there. But the plan that wins is Krishna's plan. But the Krishna's plan is in reciprocation. This is why this section Isopanisad is so nice, is that Krishna reciprocates according to the devotee's desire. So your desire was to go to New Vrindavan, and therefore Krishna reciprocated by providing a bus from New Vrindavan. Now, if your desire was going to New York, he would have supplied it from New York. Now, if your group's desire was to be lazy and start late, then Krishna gave you a bus, but he gave it to you late. Or maybe Krishna wanted you to go through some anxiety or difficulty by it being late, because Krishna wanted to teach us a lesson that, be more prepared. And as I mentioned, Krishna does this directly and also indirectly. So every little thing, we cannot think, oh, Krishna directly was holding my hand in this case. No, indirectly also, but it's all his plan. But within his plan, we have choice and freedom. Same thing with the pipe bursting. It is our plan to get a house. It is our plan to enter the Grahastha ashram, whatnot. But then Krishna is reciprocating accordingly. Accordingly, he may give us a very nice house. But he's given that house, purposely putting some problems in it, so that we become detached from that house gradually. Just like he gives us a family, but every family has some problems. Why does he give us those problems? So that we become also detached from our own enjoyment, our material enjoyment, and we become more attached to serving Krishna through our family, with our family. So Krishna's plan is there in every situation. And in every situation, our responsibility is also there. So we have to take responsibility for our decisions, which may be that we started late, and we give credit to Krishna for his arrangement, which may be to provide a nice bus. Similarly, if let's say something bad happens, because then it's the hard part. Well, this is Krishna's plan. We have to see, well, this may be due to my karma that Krishna has arranged through this plan. Or this may be something because Krishna wants to, make us advance in a certain way. So both things are always there.
So even Prabhuji, like the smallest of material thing, like any simple thing cannot move without Krishna, as in it is like people say that small, even for like materialist thing, Krishna has nothing to do it. He has his systems in place and they work automatically. Krishna doesn't get involved directly into all those.
Yes, so that is still Krishna's plan, because not a blade of grass moves without the will of the Lord. But like you're saying, it's Krishna's system. So it's not him directly interfering, but it's still his plan. In other words, like the king has set up laws, Prabhupada says, that if you steal, then you will get 5 years in jail, let's say. So that is the king's plan. He set up those laws. Now, if someone steals, then the king is not going there and then catching the person and then telling him you're going to be 5 years in jail. But his representative, the police officer, or someone may catch a person, and then the whole system he set in place puts that person 5 years in prison. On the other hand, so it's king's plan, but indirectly fulfilled. On the other hand, if the king's own son goes and steals something, then the king will be personally involved in it. He'll speak to the son, why am the king, why you still had to steal, and you must be punished, because we must set an example for everyone. But because you are my son, you're the king's son, and you're a very good person, and you're the prince, then I will modify this punishment in a certain way. Then instead of 5 years, you have to stay there 3 years and get 1 lashing. Because you have an important role here. In the same way, the devotee gets punished if he does something wrong according to Krishna's plan, but Krishna reduces it. Prabhupada says this actually. He actually reduces it. He gives much less because he's my devotee. He's trying, he's done a lot of good also. And so therefore, let me reduce it. Or Krishna gives it in a certain way that we come to our senses quicker, so we don't make so much mistakes. So he's personally taking care of a devotee's life. That's the only difference. But Krishna is always the one who's planning, who's in all situations, the devotee sees Krishna.
Thank you so much, Prabhuji, and sorry for taking so much time.
That was a nice discussion actually on Krishna's reciprocation. I was thinking actually this is a nice topic. Yeah. Any final thoughts, questions? Okay, so we'll stop here. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare
Hare
Krishna.
Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna. Dandavat pranam.
Hare Krishna.
Dandavat
Dandavat
pranam.
pranam.